Hello and welcome to the Hedge Witch Herbarium podcast. I'm Kelly Proudfoot and I apologise for it being a while since the last episode, but I've been doing a lot of research for this one, and going forward I hope to at least do an episode every 2 weeks. So this episode is about medicine and magic in the garden, how you can learn fascinating things while strolling in your garden. And I'm guiding you through my own garden while I've done this before intermittently over the years and during my studies with the Chestnut School of Herbal Medicine. I wanted to do it again and dig deeper to illustrate the hidden mysteries and magical worlds of the plants and trees in my garden, which you can do for yourself as well. If you live in an apartment or on a property with little to no garden, you can always go to one at your friends' or family's homes or take a stroll through a local park, etc. If you have a lot of potted plants in or around your home, you can delve into their worlds using the same methods we'll discuss here. For me, I'm a typical 9 destiny in numerology, and I have an all-encompassing approach to researching anything, so when it came to cataloguing my own garden, I started a spreadsheet and created categories I wanted to explore for each tree and plant. Keeping my herbs until last, since I planted them after moving into our home, I wanted to list the trees and plants that were either there before we moved in and planted by the previous owners, or those that are native and local. The 3 categories I've chosen to focus on are basic info, the uses where applicable, medicinal, culinary and cosmetic, and folklore. This episode will at least be a 2-part series, and I will put the transcript where you find this podcast. I've been meaning to do it for the last one as well, but you can check out my website to see the post once it's done, complete with pictures. A good time to start your inventory is early in the morning, around the same time the sun rises. There are 2 reasons I do this. I'm more likely to be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in the morning, and the day is still young, where external noises will be at a minimum, such as local traffic and people talking loudly in the distance. I can be a bit sensitive to noise, so when neighbours decide to yell out to each other or rev their engines before taking off, it disturbs my sense of peace, especially when I'm communing with nature. If you live away from people or in the country, you're very lucky. I like to at least bring my camera for photos and video, as well as a notebook to jot down impressions for further research. I also bring a tote or a paper bag to collect specimens, especially if I'm not sure about the plant. When coming across a tree, bush or plant, I take a good look at the leaves, stems, flowers and fruit, depending on the season. I take note of where it's located in my garden, what grows nearby, and what insects, birds or squirrels seem to visit it. Incorporating another level of communing with nature, I simply sit with it for a few moments to gain a sense of how I feel towards it and what I think I can do with it. Also, what can I do for the plant in reciprocation for giving its energies or body for food, medicine and magic. I record impressions about what the plant invokes in me, such as thoughts on related mythology, and I ask questions like, why am I envisioning Norse sigils and runes? Why do I feel emotional and highly compassionate right now? Am I sensing the powerful energies just by looking at this plant? Why does this plant make me feel sorry for it? Why am I compelled to eat this plant? You can come up with your own questions, but what's fun is letting the plant or tree, etc., talk to you. Settling into a mini meditation with each plant can open up insights that you might not discover when researching other people's works in books, online and so on. Every time I go into my garden, I discover something new. I look up and wonder what bird deposited the seed when it pooped while flying overhead, or I find out that a crop of strange weeds appeared after disturbing the soil in recent gardening sessions. There are many plants overlooked, especially when in a hurry or focusing on a particular patch or plant. That's why this kind of expedition is so exciting. You never know what you could discover, whether new specimens or the story behind the plant. My garden is in a country town that's more like a suburban city in the outskirts of Nashville, North Nashville, close to the Kentucky border. Our growing zone is 6B to 7A, and we get at least a couple of snows each winter. Not like up north in North America. The summers are hot and humid here, and we do get quite a lot of rain. The garden is home to many creatures such as squirrels, hummingbirds in the warmer weather, random turtles, opossums, raccoons, stray cats, tree frogs, and a regular visitor, a hawk. The soil is an average pH 6.5, with some sections that lean towards clay and boggy. There are open sections with full sun and some with partial shade and full shade. Some parts of our garden slope, and we have little private nooks and niches. I find that I don't usually have to fertilise or worry about diseases or pests, which is a boon, especially for a permaculture site. So here's my inventory. Maybe you have these trees and plants too. As a side note, some of the following plants and trees may not have medicinal, cosmetic or culinary uses, but we'll be looking at the folklore. So to start with is a tree, and I have 6 of them. Silver maple. The scientific name is Acer saccharinum. Like I said, I have 6 of them in the garden, 3 in the front and 3 out the back. Also known as silverleaf maple, swamp maple, creek maple, and water maple. These trees are native to central and eastern United States, one of the most common trees in the US, as well as southeastern Canada. When snapped, the twigs are said to have an unpleasant scent. I haven't found that, but some people say that. The silver maple's Latin name is close to the one for sugar maple, which is Acer saccharum, which is the best source of maple syrup due to higher amounts of sugar, although most maples can be tapped for syrup. Providing food for various animals, the hollows in the trunks often serve as home and shelters for animals such as raccoons, owls, opossums, woodpeckers and squirrels, all of which I've seen and heard in my garden. The medicinal uses for silver maple is as follows. The Mohegan people, who are part of the Algonquian Native American tribe from Connecticut, make an infusion for cough syrup from the bark that's sourced from the south side of the tree. The Cherokee tribe treated cramps by using an infusion of the bark, which helped with hives, dysentery, and menstrual issues. They created a wash from the inner bark to alleviate sore eyes and used it in or as a hot infusion for measles. Silver maple wood is also used by the Cherokee for lumber, baskets, carving, and building materials. The folklore associated with silver maple is also included with all maple trees. They all have the following powers: longevity, money, love, practical magic. Said to hold the wisdom of balance, the maple branches are used for wands, and the element for that purpose would be air, and spirit for spiritual healing. And if an infant is passed through the branches of a maple tree, they'll be granted the gift of longevity and long life. I personally like to include the idea of the moon for my silver maples, as represented by the silver undersides of the leaves of the silver maple tree. This gives them a feminine aspect, even though some say that the aspect is masculine, or that they have both energies, or all energies. It would depend on how you look at it. Considered to be sacred to the star signs Virgo and Libra, maple trees are associated with the elements of water and spirit. In this dual aspect, their planets are Jupiter and the Moon. Said to be a traveller's wood, the maple assists with gaining knowledge, enhancing communication, and enriching intellectual pursuits, so it's no surprise that the great horned owl is maple's sacred bird. The Romanis believe that eating the seeds of the maple tree attracts love and that the tree itself brings gold. Spells using maple can include the energies of binding, attracting abundance, beauty, purity, and healing. This tree also helps with discovering hidden options and opportunities, as well as enhancing divination. The next tree I'm going to tell you about in our garden is dogwood. The scientific name is Cornus florida. For the basic info, we have a lovely dogwood in our front yard that has a beautiful shade of salmon pink when it flowers. Although they're not really flowers, they're called bracts. That's bracts, which means modified leaves. And they're not technically flowers, but they look like flowers. And there's a hollow towards the base of the trunk where a stray cat once had kittens. Maybe I should call it a catwood tree. Other names for Cornus florida dogwood include Florida dogwood, American dogwood, false boxwood, cornelian tree, and Indian arrowwood. The tree has both male and female flowers, so it's considered to be bisexual, and all dogwood trees produce fruit that is usually unpleasant to eat due to the sourness. The cornelian cherry, which is in the dogwood family, can be found in southern Europe, and common dogwood grows in many parts of Europe and Western Asia. Dogwood is used for a variety of things such as inks, red dyes, mallets and tool handles, butcher's blocks, and jewellery boxes. The medicinal uses of dogwood, especially this particular one, Cornus florida. The bark and roots were used by Native Americans to treat malaria, since the tree produces a quinine substitute that also helps with restless leg syndrome and cramps. For these purposes, a tincture or tea can be prepared, which also helps with cases of chronic diarrhea. Dogwood is said to be astringent and antipyretic, which means that it helps in preventing recurring illnesses. As a poultice, the bark has been used to treat wounds and external ulcers. A tincture of the bitter fruit was used to restore the stomach in people dealing with alcoholism. The folklore associated with dogwood, it's believed to possess the powers of protection, loyalty, wishes, secrets, desire, and fertility. For granting wishes, the sap should be gathered on Midsummer Eve and carried in a mojo bag or handkerchief. Since the flowers or bracts form the shape of a cross, dogwood is tied with Christian mythology. Since the tree is said to be a herb of secrecy, the flowers and leaves can be inserted into your diary, grimoire, or your book of shadows. Folklore states that it's bad luck to bring the flowers or bracts into the home or to burn the wood, which is so dense that it sinks when immersed in water. So it's nice to use the wood to create wands. Dogwood's protective powers are related to concealment if you need to hide from danger or provide a shield for your shadows. The loyalty and strength aspects relate to the number of 4 bracts, or petals of the flower, since numerologically 4 is about stability, security, and practicality. Now we're moving on to my yew plant, YEW, and the scientific name is Taxus baccata. We discussed yew in the episode The Dark Side of the Garden, but I'll break it down here for you. Once called the graveyard tree in Britain, this evergreen has the duality of a good and bad reputation. from death to rebirth and healing, especially in cases involving cancer, which was recently discovered. The yew has a fascinating folklore. Also known as European yew, this tree was used for suicide by soldiers in war times, and there are other cases of this up until recent times, and that's because of how deadly it is. It's poisonous. The folk names associated with the yew include the Tree of Immortality, Common or English Yew, Eibe, I don't know if I'm saying that right, that's Eibe, Taxus, and the Red Tree. The wood was often used to make longbows, and Shakespeare included the yew as an ingredient in the poisonous concoction featured in Macbeth, describing the inclusion, "Slips of yew silvered in the moon's eclipse." Some yew specimens are said to be over 2,000 years old, and a 15th century botanist stated that the poisonous gases from the dead in graveyards was to blame for the yew's toxicity, as the roots were believed to hold the dead in place by securing them through their eye sockets or mouths. While yew is poisonous and can be fatal if eaten, the red cup around the seed seems to be edible as long as the seed within is not chewed or swallowed, but it's best to avoid them. Birds eat them and spread the seeds. And just as a side note before we continue, all the plants that I talk about here, if you decide you want to use them or ingest them, you must research first and talk to your doctor, because I don't recommend taking anything, especially if you don't know about it. So the medicinal uses includes the discovery of Taxol, which is the chemotherapy drug paclitaxel. It's used in breast, ovarian and lung cancer treatments and can be derived from other species of yew, including this one. As it was already becoming scarce when its chemotherapeutic potential was realized, the Pacific yew was never commercially harvested from its habitat at a large scale. The widespread use of the paclitaxel, which is Taxol, was enabled when a semi-synthetic pathway was developed from extracts of cultivated yews of other species. And the folklore associated with European yew. It's more often used as an ornamental plant, but its rich history of folklore includes the pagan notion that it was a sacred tree due to it being an evergreen. As a symbol of eternal life, along with death and rebirth, the yew can regenerate itself when the branches touch the ground and take root. The Druids thought that the yew was a portal to the other world, and ancient priests would use it to summon spirits. Also believed to possess magical powers, the yew releases a toxin gas on hot days which can prompt hallucinations. There are many yew trees in the grounds of European churches and graveyards, since early Christians often took over pagan locations, also incorporating the symbolism of the yew's powers of immortality and resurrection for Jesus Christ. People would bury yew shoots with the dead and used the boughs as palms at Easter in churches. Some scholars believe the Yggdrasil tree in Norse mythology was a European yew, and the ancient Celts, depends on how you say it, believed that it symbolized the transmigration of the soul into a new form. Banishment and raising the dead, if you decide you want to use it for those powers, meditate under a yew tree or carefully with gloves, take the needles and place them on your altar when conducting a ritual to contact your ancestors at Samhain. The yew is also sacred to Hecate, the Greek goddess of the crossroads. The next tree I'll talk about is mimosa. Albizia julibrisson is the scientific name. I have 2 mimosas in my garden growing close to each other, and the flowers are bisexual, although they need to be moved into the full sun for them to grow better and produce more flowers. Mine are growing within 6 feet of the house, and they need to be moved at least 10 feet away and into the open, which I'll be doing soon. The folk names include sleeping grass, sensitive tree, Persian silk tree, and collective happiness tree. They're the mimosa produces those beautiful big puffball flowers that are really quite striking, and they're usually pink, but they can range to magenta or even violet. So they attract hummingbirds, bees and butterflies and other insects. After periods of rain and at night, the leaves close slowly, which gives mimosa the Persian name night sleeper. They are mostly used as an ornamental plant due to the pretty frond-like leaves and the puffball flowers, but they can be used for medicine as well and are used effectively. Mimosa leaves are highly effective when rubbed on rashes caused by stinging nettle. While mimosa has a wide range of medicinal applications for issues such as anxiety, depression and insomnia, the seeds and the pods are poisonous. Highly prized in traditional Chinese medicine, it was mentioned in the Shen Nong Ben Kao Materia Medica, which dates back to 1066 to 221 BC. While the bark is considered to be more grounding, the flowers are said to be euphoric or uplifting. Using both the bark and the blooms can give a nicely balanced effect, which can help with scattered energies or frazzled nerves, as well as quieting negative self-talk. Used traditionally for depression, anxiety and insomnia, mimosa can also help with agitation or irritability, and it's said to bring on sleep and peaceful dreams, which is especially helpful for those who might be prone to nightmares. And the folklore associated with mimosa includes helping bring about prophetic dreams, healing grief, bringing peace and healing, and meditation. It's good for spirit communication and releasing stuck emotions. Mimosa also breaks hexes and curses, and it's considered to be a heart-based medicine that flows on to assist with issues related to the physical body, the emotions, and the spirit. So now we're going to move on to honeysuckle. The scientific name is Lonicera japonica, and I have this growing. It tends to grow over other bushes and trees, but I've got it at the side of the house and out the back. And many bees, birds and butterflies are attracted to the sweet nectar of honeysuckle, and while the unusual flowers are gorgeous, it's important to note that the berries and the leaves are poisonous. It can be invasive too. It's a vine that climbs trees and fences and trellises, but it's also very beautiful and good medicine. For example, it's antibacterial, antispasmodic, anti-inflammatory, it's antiviral, it's a diuretic, it reduces fever, it eliminates toxins, it helps with swelling and pain, lowers cholesterol and blood pressure, and helps with coughs. Culinary uses, you can use the flowers in a tea or make infused honey with them. You can make syrups and you can use it in puddings and desserts. It's also used in cosmetics for skin diseases as a toner or facial spray, in moisturizers, soaps and cleansers, shampoos and conditioners and perfumes, which is obvious because it's really quite sweet. In folklore, honeysuckle is used in love magic, and its clinging vines is said to be the main reason for this, since they evoke seduction, but the lovely scent and delicate flowers lend their beauty to the spell. When harvesting honeysuckle, leave several flowers for the fairies and honour the plant as one of their homes. Other magical properties of honeysuckle include protection, psychic powers, prosperity, spirituality, and it enhances other herbs. It also brings balance and helps with gratitude. And deities that I like to associate with honeysuckle is Kuan Yin, and but also Kununos, Mercury or Apollo, Persephone and Ganesha. And I gather honeysuckle just to make a tea, but you can make tinctures out of the dried petals or flowers, or you can, like I said, you can use it for infused honey, which is something I'm getting into lately. The next one I want to talk about in my garden, which is everywhere, is violet. The common blue violet, the scientific name is Viola sororia, and I also have Viola odorata in my garden as well. I've got it everywhere, and I love it for its medicine and sweet little flowers. I have a mix of the plants, like I said, the common blue violet, but Viola sororia is also known as purple violet and wood violet, as well as, like I said, I've got Viola odorata, which is also called common violet, sweet violet and English violet. Violets are mostly found in forests and woods, but they can tolerate full sun. Historically used as a food and medicine, violet produces edible leaves and flowers that can be candied and included in herbal teas. Many people think it's a weed, but it attracts beneficial pollinators. The Viola genus has long been considered a symbol of modesty and love, especially among poets and writers. One of those existed in ancient Greece. She was Sappho, a famous lyric poetess, who was said to have been a lesbian. The word is derived from the island of Lesbos, where she lived. This has been explained as the reason why the violet has been called the lesbian flower. For the medicine, the Cherokee and then later Americans used violet for treating headaches and colds, as well as constipation and sore throats. Violet leaves can be eaten raw in salads and other dishes. They contain high amounts of vitamin C and A and can be used to treat inflammation and skin conditions. Other medicinal properties include anti-inflammatory, it's a laxative, it's a general tonic, for sore throats, as we've mentioned, as a diuretic, expectorant for headaches, insomnia, urinary issues, and it's an antispasmodic. Syrup and essence or extracts made from violets can be used for flavouring liqueurs, which was what the ancient Romans and Greeks did to create a wine called vinum violatum. For the folklore of violets, they're associated with ancient Greek nymphs, and they were mentioned in Homer's Odyssey when he described a place called Ogygia as the beautiful land of parsley and violets. The epic story of Attis, who castrated himself in a frenzy after his wife Cybele discovered his infidelity, the story included violets as associated with his death and rebirth. It's ironic that violets are said to represent faithfulness. Violets are commonly used in love spells, along with magic involving protection, peace, healing, and wishes. And so it's really all about the touchy-feely emotions and feelings. It's all about love and healing, but also truth and lust and loyalty. And of course, violets are used in many different cosmetic products, such as perfumes and shampoos and skin creams. The next plant I want to talk about is another tree in my garden. I think I've only got one. It's called crepe myrtle. The scientific name is Lagestromia indica. I hope I said that right. And like I said, I've only got one of these beauties, which is a magenta pink and lovely when it blooms, commonly known as crepe myrtle. The genus Lagestromia was named after Magnus von Lagerström, a Swedish merchant who was also the director of the Swedish East Indian Company. He gave the plants he'd collected to Carl Linnaeus, who was a Swedish botanist, among other things. The species indica means Indian or from India, but crepe myrtle originally came from China and Korea. The beautiful showy flowers look like tufts of crepe paper, and they are hermaphrodite, and pollination is done by various insects. Other names for the crepe myrtle include Queen of Flowers, Pride of India, and Queen of Shrubs. The medicinal properties of crepe myrtle, which I was surprised to find out, there's quite a lot of medicinal applications involving crepe myrtle, usually made from the leaves, roots, bark, flowers and fruit. Traditional uses include controlling blood pressure as an anti-inflammatory, an antifungal for treating urinary issues, pain relief, controlling diabetes and Alzheimer's. Other uses include cholesterol control, treating diarrhea, lung and yeast infections. The seeds are said to be a narcotic used to treat insomnia. And for the folklore, the powers of the crepe myrtle include longevity, fidelity, love, beauty, youth and good health. The wood can be used to fashion wands for the element of water. The energies are feminine, so any rituals or spells involving healing, stability and compassion would be enhanced by this lovely plant. The next one I'm going to move on to is hibiscus. And I discovered that the scientific name for the species I have is Hibiscus syriacus or syriacus, which is the bluebird. I've got the bluebird and red heart versions of hibiscus. I don't live in the right conditions for growing the more well-known hibiscus used in medicine, which is Hibiscus sabdarifera, but there's a lot of interesting info about Hibiscus syriacus, also known as the Rose of Sharon. It's believed to have originated from Syria, hence the species name Syriacus or Syriacus. Although most botanists state that it has its origins in southern China, there are many different names for Hibiscus syriacus, including Syrian rose, common hibiscus, rose mallow, which indicates its relation to marshmallow and the Malvaceae family, shrubby Althea, and blue hibiscus. The national flower of South Korea, it's also mentioned in their national anthem, but even though it's known as the Rose of Sharon, it's not a rose. The plant has been cultivated since before recorded time, and the leaves and flowers were used in China as a food and as a tea. The blooms, which usually appear at night and only last a day, between July and September, attract hummingbirds and many pollinators. The medicinal properties of the Rose of Sharon or hibiscus, the one I have, it's well known in traditional Chinese medicine, and it's been used to treat hemorrhoids, vaginal discharge, dysentery and itchy skin conditions. The leaves are diuretic and they are used in cough medicines as well as medicine for stomach issues. A decoction of the root bark helps with inflammation, dry skin conditions, fever, bleeding, expelling worms, and lowering blood pressure. In cooking, the young leaves and flowers can be eaten raw in salads or cooked in stews. The leaves and flowers can be used as a tea, although they have a mucilaginous texture, which means that the medicine is best drawn out with cold or lukewarm infusions. In cosmetic applications, the leaves of the Rose of Sharon are used to make shampoo, and blue dye can be created from the flowers. The folklore for hibiscus, it's related to Aphrodite, and it's a flower of passion and lust. Other powers include attracting sexual love, divination, and in rituals where the goddess Kali is being honoured. since her mythology advises that she sometimes morphs into a hibiscus flower. In Korea, the symbol of the flower is related to abundance and eternity. You can place a hibiscus flower under your pillow to evoke prophetic dreams and use the herb in rituals involving psychic work and to increase the power of other herbs. So, other medicinal properties, just as a side note, is, the hibiscus sabdorifer has high amounts of vitamin C and minerals and flavonoids. So, if you live in a warmer climate like zones 9 to 11, you can grow the hibiscus sabdorifer for the medicine. Otherwise, the Rose of Sharon, it can pretty much grow anywhere, and it tends to self-sow. I find little seedlings here and there throughout the garden, and I'm planning on digging up some of them and planting them alongside the back end of our property down the side so that we can form a hedge, because hibiscus is really good as a hedge. Now I'm going to move on to another tree, which is apple. We have an apple tree in our backyard. The scientific name is Malus domestica. It keeps the squirrels, opossums, several birds and raccoons happy. I know that when it fruits. The apple originates in Central Asia, and they've been featured in many mythologies such as Greek, Norse and Christian traditions, famously in the Bible where Eve shares the apple from the tree of knowledge with Adam. Since the apple is a symbol for knowledge and temptation, the name Adam's apple is used for the larynx, said to magically represent the forbidden fruit eaten by Adam. Domesticated over 10,000 years ago in the Tian Shan Mountains, there are over 7,000 cultivars that are bred for a variety of purposes such as food, cider and cosmetic applications. They're the main ingredient in wassail, used in rituals to honour the harvest when the fruits appear from late summer to autumn. In Arthurian legends, Avalon means the island of apples. Medicinal properties of many, including for digestion and constipation and anti-inflammatory properties and so on. The saying, "an apple a day keeps the doctor away," started in Wales in the 19th century, which originally stated, "eat an apple on going to bed and you'll keep the doctor from earning his bread." Then it evolved to state, "an apple a day, no doctor to pay." Apples contain flavonoids and a fibre called pectin, which breaks down in the stomach, although most of these are found in the skin, so it's probably important not to peel apples. It's good for you to eat the skin. Said to slow digestion and to help with overeating, apples can reduce acid reflux, constipation and diarrhea. Some studies have shown that apples help with heart and blood vessel damage, lowering cholesterol and protecting the cells in the pancreas, which flows on to lower chances of type 2 diabetes. Other medicinal applications include supporting lung and bone health, weight loss, symptoms of Alzheimer's, immunity, and providing strong antioxidants. The folklore for the apple, and there's a lot of it, but apart from the aforementioned Christian symbolism of apples, Norse mythology tells the story of the goddess Idun, or you actually pronounce it Jodun, who offered apples to the gods to grant eternal youth. In Norway, a Germanic burial site containing a ship with barrels of apples was discovered, and they were found in burial mounds that also contained nuts, which were a symbol of fertility. Often depicted as mysterious and forbidden, apples were considered to be sacred to Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of love. The Greek heroine Atalanta was tricked in a foot race by a suitor who threw 3 golden apples gained from Aphrodite before her to distract her from winning the race and to gain her hand in marriage. She had been told by an oracle never to marry, as it would be her downfall, which is why she challenged him to a foot race he couldn't possibly win, since she was known to be able to outrun anyone. The folk names for the apple tree include silver bough, fruit of the underworld, and tree of love. Apple's powers also include sexuality, divination, immortality, luck, harvesting. And as a side note, Pomona was the Roman goddess of apples and orchards. It's also used for ancestor worship and prosperity. Cut an apple halfways and you'll see a pentagram which you can place on your altar for the energies of the apple as well as the protective and powerful energy of the pentagram. The wood can be made into wands, the element would be water, and you can also use the wood for crafting your own runes. Magical, like we've mentioned, the magical properties and other deities that it's sacred to include Dionysus and Apollo. So I'm going to move on now to a ground ivy, which is a creeping plant that I have in certain parts of my garden, especially in the front, where it likes to stalk and hover around our potted plants. Creeping Charlie is another name for ground ivy, and the scientific name is Glaucoma heteracea. It's in the Lamiaceae, or the mint family, and Creeping Charlie has pretty leaves that are rounded and scalloped, with sweet little lilac-coloured flowers. Folk names for this plant include cat's foot, runaway robin, and field balm. European settlers introduced Creeping Charlie around the world, and it's been used as a salad green, although it's considered to be an aggressively invasive weed. Maybe that's a good reason to eat it. Used by the Saxons when brewing ale as a preservative, it was later replaced by hops, and it was also used as a substitute for animal rennet in cheese making. I don't mind Creeping Charlie because several wild bees like to collect pollen from it, and butterflies enjoy visiting it. For medicine, for thousands of years, this plant has been used medicinally in Europe for inflammation of the eyes, tinnitus, indigestion, kidney diseases, as a diuretic for its astringent properties, and so on. It was also used to treat bronchitis, and in Austrian medicine, Creeping Charlie is used to combat the flu, liver disorders, fever, and stomach issues. Other uses include treating menstrual problems, arthritis and joint pain, bladder stones, and skin conditions. Some say that Creeping Charlie's astringent properties assist with drying out the mucous membranes and that it helps to stop bleeding. It's important to note that this plant is toxic to horses and livestock, but wild pigs have been said to eat it without any problems, and it's also toxic to rodents. The folklore associated with Creeping Charlie, or ground ivy, it's associated with the powers of divination and magic, and it's protective against hexes, and worn by milkmaids. It was once at least worn by milkmaids when doing the first milking of the cows in the fields, and they also milked through a wreath made from this plant. It was weaved through garlands and crowns and worn on Midsummer's Eve, and other magical uses include meditation, healing, sleep, and friendship. The dried flowers and leaves can be steeped as a tea to be drunk to overcome shyness, and placing a sprig under your bed encourages peace and comforting dreams, and it can also help ease depression and anxiety. Another creeper I've got in the garden is English ivy, Hedera helix. And while there are many reports about how ivy strangles everything in its path, in my garden it seems that my English ivy is polite, since it sparingly appears against the back wall of the house and some of the silver maples I have at the base, creeping slowly but not brazenly taking over. Native to Western Asia and Europe, it can pretty much grow everywhere. Other names include gort, lovestone, and bindwood. From late summer to late autumn, ivy produces small flowers that are rich in nectar, so it attracts bees, insects, birds, and deer. Used to cover unsightly walls, ivy can help with keeping buildings cool in the summer and providing insulation in the winter. While ivy berries can be poisonous to humans, extracts from this plant are used in cough medicine. In traditional medicine, the berries and leaves were taken for respiratory problems, and the leaves were used as an eye wash. Contact dermatitis affects some people who handle ivy, so it's best to do a patch test or wearing gloves before handling it. Also, taken internally, ivy can cause anemia, and it's mildly poisonous to rabbits and similar animals. An interesting thing about ivy is that it can absorb nearly 100% of mold spores and clear a high level of toxins from the atmosphere in just 12 hours. So it'd be nice to have some inside if you can. The folklore associated with ivy includes, traditionally brides wore or carried ivy for good luck and fidelity. When strewn about an area, it's said to protect against disaster and negativity. Other magical uses include healing, fertility, water magic, and love. Ivy is sacred to Dionysus and Osiris, even though it's considered to be a feminine herb. Its male counterpart is holly. When placed near the front door, it keeps unwanted visitors away, and it can be used in spells and rituals involving growth and beauty. Ivy refreshes and revitalizes the mind, especially when dark thoughts are looming. It's not advised to use ivy in cooking, and in cosmetics, though, an infusion of the twigs is helpful for sunburn, and you can also use ivy for a dark hair rinse. But it's poisonous in large amounts, which can bring about breathing problems, coma, and sometimes contact dermatitis, as I mentioned before. Another plant I have growing, which spreads, is wild strawberry, and the scientific name is Fragaria vesca. The species vesca is Latin for thin and feeble, and these little beauties appear all throughout our garden, like I said, peering up through other ground cover plants and grass, since they are small and easy to miss if you're not paying attention. The little red berries are known as wild strawberries, and the plant is also called woodland strawberry, alpine strawberry, and Carpathian strawberry. This plant has been consumed and used by humans since the Stone Age, and today it's used in artisanal condiments and jams and preserves, cosmetics, and the leaves are a tea substitute. Smaller than regular strawberries, this plant is in the rose family and can pretty much grow anywhere, although it doesn't like extremes such as overly wet or overly dry conditions. Wild strawberry spreads by runners, but it also leaves seeds behind that spring up when the soil is disturbed. Elk and deer enjoy eating the leaves, and the berries are sought out by birds and several mammals. Other animals that visit the wild strawberry include butterflies, moths, and flies, since the species is hermaphrodite. Medicinally, wild strawberry fruit and leaves are diuretic, laxative, and astringent. They're also useful when used for fevers and treating gout. Other uses include a tea of the leaves for a blood tonic, a wash to soothe sunburn, treating chilblains, liver problems and kidney issues, chronic dysentery, diarrhea, gastritis, and whitening teeth. The berries are said to alleviate thirst, cool the stomach, and reduce inflammation of the liver. Wild strawberry is used in cosmetics in skincare creams since the plant is reputed to assist with wrinkles and lightening freckles, as well as alleviate scratches, rashes and burns. This plant contains vitamin B, C and E, and it's suggested that it can help with recovery from hepatitis. The folklore around strawberries and wild strawberries. There's many legends involving strawberries, such as the Norse story about Frigga smuggling the souls of dead babies to heaven inside strawberries, and Bavarian peasants used to tie baskets filled with the berries on the horns of their cattle for the elves, who would bring prosperity in return. Strawberries are often used in love spells, and their powers include luck, abundance, fertility, growth, pleasure, love, grounding, and balance in relationships. The elements associated with strawberries are water and earth, so rituals involving a link between the material and spiritual realms would be enhanced with the addition of the wild strawberry or strawberries in general. Which are also considered to be aphrodisiac, which is interesting since they're in the rose family, which is also associated with lust and desire, and they're sacred to the Norse goddess Freya, who is the patroness of witches. And just as a little side note, I've noticed throughout my studies of herbalism, pretty much everything is said to have the magical powers of love, but at the end of the day, my attitude is whatever it speaks to you, you might pick a plant that doesn't have certain attributes, but for you personally it does. So again, it's all about personal preference. So the next plant I want to share with you from my garden, and there's many, so like I said, this is going to be multiple, or at least 2 or 3 parts in this series, is Star of Bethlehem. The scientific name is Ornithogalum umbellatum, and when I first came across these lovely little plants, I was fixated on their sweet, white, star-shaped blooms with their almost invisible pale green stripes on the petals. It seems to pop up in random places in my garden, so it's a delight to come across them during a morning stroll. Star of Bethlehem hails from southern Africa and southern Europe. They start as bulbs and then the flowers open up late in the day. When they're closed, it's easier to see the green stripes. Named after the biblical story of Jesus' birth, the Star of Bethlehem is also known as Grass Lily, 11 o'clock Lady, and Nap at Noon. Other folk names include Sleepy Dick, Summer Snowflake, Snowdrop, and Starflower. Included in the asparagus family, this plant is considered poisonous, although it's used in several regional cuisines, and patent remedies include the essences, like the bark flower remedies. The Star of Bethlehem is hermaphrodite, and the flowers open late in the morning and close at night or when it's cloudy. Insects pollinate the Star of Bethlehem, even though some say that it's self-pollinated. The medicinal properties. To start with, Star of Bethlehem is toxic, producing symptoms such as salivation, nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, pain, burning and swelling of the lips, tongue and throat, as well as shortness of breath. Despite all that, it's been considered edible for over 2,000 years, included in cooking in places such as Turkey and in traditional medicine in India and Britain. The bulbs are dried and ground to make flour for bread, which includes the flowers baked in, although I wouldn't advise trying it for yourself. And like I mentioned before, it's also used in bark flower remedies, but again, the toxicity of the plant guards against its use internally. The folklore associated with the Star of Bethlehem includes, in the Bible, it was said to have fallen to the earth, the Star of Bethlehem itself, where it shattered and scattered the white flowers to create the plant. Another legend that mentions this plant is the story of the Crusades and pilgrimages to the Holy Land. Leonardo da Vinci incorporated the plant in one of his paintings about the story of Leda and the swan. Leda can be seen holding the flowers in her left hand. Associated with hope and purity, Star of Bethlehem can be used in rituals and spells for reconciliation and atonement or forgiveness. Also used magically for inspiration, this plant is said to indicate the possibility of miracles and surprises coming your way. Other powers include innocence, honesty, and truth, as well as the promise of a bright future. I'm going to end this episode with valerian, of course, which is probably one of my top 3 favourite plants. And with this, with valerian, I planted this myself. So it's not really, it wasn't one that was here originally, but that doesn't matter. The scientific name for valerian is Valeriana officinalis. And like I said, it's my pride and joy. And I have a patch of valerian that I grew from organic seeds in the back corner of our garden. Native to Asia and Europe, valerian's folk names include vandal root, St. George's herb, all heal, garden heliotrope, although it's not in the heliotrope family, moon root, and bloody butcher. The mature plant has sweet-smelling flowers that are pink and white, attracting various insects and flies, moths and butterflies. Used as a sedative and for other medicinal uses for over 2,000 years, even smelling the flowers can have a sedative effect, especially in a nice warm summer's afternoon. The leaves are fern-like and it grows up to around 6 feet tall. The roots are ready to harvest in the second fall, and the scent can be sweet to some and overly pungent to others. Valerian is even more attractive to cats than catnip, and it's been reported that mountain lions have been seen rolling around in patches of wild valerian. Known as a sedative and hypnotic, especially useful for insomnia, valerian also has anti-anxiety properties, helps with depression, stomach issues, increases deep sleep, and it's an antispasmodic. The 17th century botanist Nicholas Culpeper advised that valerian boiled with raisins, aniseed, and licorice creates a medicine that eases coughing, and it was used to guard against the plague. Valerian was also used during both world wars as a nervine to treat shell shock. It's important to note that some people experience the opposite effects of valerian, resulting in hyperactivity and restlessness. Since the compounds in this herb depress the nervous system, it shouldn't be taken with alcohol, antihistamine drugs, and other medications that cause sedation. Valerian helps with circulatory issues and it can slow down the heart rate while enhancing the force of the heartbeats, which is interesting. One of the best-known herbal sources of magnesium and calcium, the extracts are included in perfumes and flavouring for cooking. And the folklore associated with valerian includes the Scandinavian goddess Hertha, who used valerian on her riding crop to increase the speed of her stag, although the inclusion of hops in the creation of the stag's bridle might have helped with her journey through the realms. The Pied Piper of Hamelin is said to have put valerian in his pockets to divert the rats from the town, since rats adore the scent of valerian. The ancient Greeks used it to ward off evil by hanging bunches of the herb in their windows. The Celts used valerian to avert lightning, and it's been used in spells for love and sleeping potions. I use valerian in rituals for dream incubation, even though it's reported to reduce REM sleep. With a long history of medicinal use, valerian was known to the Greeks and Romans for its ability to induce sleep. Along with dream incubation, the magical properties include love, protection, purification, and repelling negative energy. The Greeks used valerian to ward off evil, and folklore advises that if a woman wears a sprig of this herb, men will follow her like children. Other powers include purification, consecration, peace, hex breaking, happiness, grounding, stability, creativity, and accessing hidden knowledge. In Sweden in medieval times, valerian was placed inside the wedding clothes of the groom to protect against the envy of the elves. In black magic, the herb can be used in place of graveyard dust for conjuring spirits to do your bidding. So that's the end of this part. It will be 2 or 3 parts, this series. So I will have the next episode ready within the next week. So keep an eye out for that. And if you feel so inclined, please feel free to donate whatever you like. You can look for the little heart symbol on the website. So otherwise, I hope you're enjoying this, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. My name is Kelly Proudfoot, and until next time, blessed be.